Hey everybody, Kimberly King here. I am happy to be joining you. I'm actually outside. I hope it's not too bright. I'm outside working today because it's such a pretty day. It's the 4th of July. No, it's the 3rd of July. So I wanted to jump on here and record early because I'm going to be out at fireworks later. So today we're talking about chapter 6 and 7. So chapter 6 is so important right now, creating safe spaces. I don't know where you're tuning in from, but here in Connecticut, we've had a number of issues with child predators, with news stories, with unsafe care situations. And even just yesterday, there was a story in the news about a YMCA child care provider who was working in a kids club who was charged with having possession of CSAM, child sexual abusive material. This person was caught, and the details are still not clear about where this person got the CSAM, if it was generated at the YMCA or if he was a person who was looking at CSAM that was created by other people. Either way, pictures of children, it this type of abuse is really a very serious problem, and we learned a lot about that at the conference that I just went to at Johns Hopkins University about how this happens, why this happens, and how do we make it stop. So that's why chapter 6, creating safe spaces, is so important. And if you have any questions after you watch this, please post them in the comments so that I can help get you the answers if I don't have them. So I wanted to read a little bit about chapter 6. So, one thing about child safety, specifically at schools and childcare centers and daycare centers, is having all of the children in line of sight. So I say in chapter 6 on page 69, educators want to keep our classrooms as safe as possible, but sometimes our cute ideas about decorating, dividing spaces, providing quiet little nooks, and places for the children to relax become actually part of the problem. It's important to keep line of sight open always. This means making sure that there are no areas blocked from your observation. So you have to think about when you step into your classroom, can you see everybody at all times? So if you've got like bookshelves in the way, or if you've sort of made your room into sections by using bookshelves or dividers, this is the perfect time before school starts this year, before you set up your classroom, to set it up correctly. And as a parent, once you get to know whoever your preschool teacher is or your kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, when you go to back to school night, you can ask questions about how the room is set up and ask teachers pointed questions like, hey, you know what? This looks like an area where kids could find themselves in trouble. Can you think about designing your classroom with a more open space? And you can hand them a copy of this book and tell them to read chapter 6. So that's one thing teachers can do. It's a very basic thing. Um, Providing a space where children can tell if they have a problem with any type of issue, including body safety, is critical because as teachers, we're very busy. And, there's sometimes 22 to 25 kids in a class. We have an assistant usually, but not always. And it's like juggling, and there's just so much going on at all times that sometimes a child might feel like they can't get your attention, even by raising their hand. Sometimes you'll say, okay, I'll come back to you, or, oh, can you ask me later? Those types of things. So in the book, I provided a really unique way for your child, your class, to have a reporting avenue. So this is just like a little sticky that I would create. And it said, put the child's name on it, and they would check off if they had a red flag, they need to talk, or they need to call a safe adult. So if a child were to hand you this little sticky, it's an immediate stop for you as a teacher. This is something you teach at the beginning of the year. You incorporate it into your class safety rules. You explain when is the right time to use it and when is not. And then you utilize this as part of a reporting system in your class. Very helpful. Another thing that really provides an incredible amount of prevention is the simple rule of two. Now, this YMCA case in Westport, Connecticut, there was an email that went out that said that the YMCA follows all of these sexual abuse prevention policies. And I know that they've been trained mostly with darkness to light prevention, stewards of children prevention, and it is. I've worked for YMCA's before. It does seem to be something that they have on their radar, that they implement, that they have policies for. So if this YMCA was practicing the rule of two, which means two adults with children always, and never one adult alone with one children. If they were practicing that rule, then this person who has been accused of watching and viewing CSAM wouldn't have been able to make it at the YMCA, would not have been able to videotape or cell phone record children naked or any type of situation, wouldn't have been able to record a diaper change, wouldn't have been able to record changing bathing suits, wouldn't have been able to record anything if there was another adult in the class with this person. The rule of two really stops a predator in his or her tracks because there is always a witness in the room. So if you see somebody you're working with at a childcare center videotaping or recording themselves as they change a diaper, what are you going to do? You're going to grab the phone out of their hand and call your principal and call 911. You're going to report that. That's not going to happen, not in your classroom. You're going to be looking and observing and watching your children, but you're also going to be watching the people you work with because that's how we protect children. There was a case in the news this year about a daycare worker who was found recording diaper changes and tickling a baby in the private area, and then even bragging to staff that they thought that the tickling was something that the baby liked. This was a really disgusting case. And it was reported immediately by the other person who saw it. So there are stops that you can put in place at your child care facility, at your preschool, at your school to prevent this from happening. The rule of two is one of them. And if you're a parent watching this, ask, make sure you ask how many children are in the room. It can't just be one because that's not safe. That's just absolutely not safe. So this is really on my mind because of the news lately. One way to like communicate with parents and teachers, you know, when we want to get things going, conversations going, and work as a team, is to send a family-friendly newsletter about what's going on this week. You can send this digitally, you can send this old-fashioned, like in a folder. For instance, in my news, I always write what's coming up, what we're doing in class this week, and then a body safety tip on every little newsletter that I send home. And then maybe like reminders, make sure you have a spare bag of clothes for your child to keep at school in case we have an accident, because there are always accidents. One dangerous area is potty training and accidents at school. So you want to have your child potty trained before they go to school, and here's why. And it's not a judgmental thing, it's a safety thing. If your child has an accident, which they will, you don't want to have another adult helping your child change clothes. It's just an opportunity for abuse. Even if you're at the safest school ever, and even if you trust your teachers completely, it's just something that teachers really don't feel comfortable doing, don't want to do, and would prefer that you have your child potty trained before they start school. If you don't have your child potty trained before school, then a really great safety technique that I talk about here on page 74 is, okay, well, if you don't have that child trained completely, then you had better train your child in how to change their clothes on their own without any help. So you're going to have to practice accident drills at home. So have a mock accident, show your child, walk them through it, tell them how to slowly and carefully take off their clothes that are wet or dirty, put them in a bag, clean themselves up, wash their hands, put on their clean clothes, wash their hands again, zip up the bag with the dirty stuff, and then put the dirty stuff all zipped up right into their backpack. That way, if they have practiced this, it's something they can handle on their own. It's something that gives them independence, and it avoids having a bunch of people trying to help your child handle these situations. Now, there are some situations that need help, and I remember one of them not so fondly, but sometimes kids get sick and potty accidents are above their pay grade. And if you do have to handle a really yucky potty accident, then you need to get another adult to help you as a teacher with that potty accident. You need to have an observer with you so that you can narrate to the child, okay, I'm going to help you with this. I'm going to help you with that. Here's a wipe. Why don't you wipe that? Here's another wipe. Try it again. You just narrate, narrate, narrate. Do not touch the child, but help the child with calmness, patience, and have that other person as a witness. If it's way above anything that you're comfortable doing, then you just leave the child on the potty for a minute, keep the two adults in the bathroom, and then call for someone at the office to notify mom or dad because there are some situations that just require a caregiver to clean up. But they are worth rehearsing because sometimes kids can handle these accidents on their own. In chapter 6, we also talk about play dates and sleepovers, and how I really don't recommend sleepovers for kids under the age of 10 at all. If you've read my book, I Said No, you will know why. You just don't know what happens at other people's houses. You don't know how other parents supervise your children. You don't know what older siblings or cousins or neighborhood friends are there. You don't really know anything. And to assume that your child will be safe is really a dangerous assumption. So I would, before any sleepover, I would wait until your child is absolutely old enough to stand up for themselves, to call you if they need to get out of there, and to understand completely body safety rules and have read a number of books like I Said No. Siblings, we talk about even creating safe spaces at home. So child to child sexual abuse is the most common type of sexual abuse. It's now reported that it accounts for upwards of between 40 and 70% of all abuse comes from child to child, and that includes siblings. So, how do you protect your siblings? How do you protect your kids at home from each other? Do you have to? Well, if you start early talking about body boundaries, body safety, consent, all of those things, and you set safe rules in motion, you will have an easier time of it. But I do recommend always kind of enforcing the rules of like, you know what, we're always going to sleep in our own beds. When people are changing, we're going to have privacy. When people are in the bathroom or in the shower, we're going to have the doors shut. We're not going to have brothers and sisters just barging in on each other with each other's privacy. And just like when you have a play date or a sleepover at your house, you have to supervise and monitor your kids constantly because kids are curious. And a little curiosity is okay, but you want to be able to take that moment where you accidentally catch your kids playing doctor and talk about it and teach through it and make it a teachable moment about how bodies are private and how we have to respect each other's boundaries. So it's something that you can teach through, and prevention is really easy if you start early on this. Kids need to know that this type of thing is not okay and that their private parts are just for them. So I would recommend, if you want to learn more about that type of topic and how it can happen at a home, there's a very good book by Diane Tarantini called Everyone Was Silent, and she shares her story about how it happened to her and how her parents didn't notice. So I would really recommend going to see that book. We're gonna pause him for a minute. Um, oops, sorry about that. So yeah, I'm gonna pause and we're going to stop on chapter 6 and move over to chapter 7. Chapter 7 is one of my favorite chapters. I might even make this a whole separate I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna pause here and I'm gonna make this a whole separate recording so that it's not too long. But thank you guys for listening about how to create safe circles at home and at school. If you have any questions, please comment below or send me an email at kimberlykingbooks@gmail.com or follow me over at Tough Topics Mom because I answer a lot of DMs over there. Okay, guys, have a safe day. Take care. And thank you for coming to book club.